Hello. Hey, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Good to see everybody in the chat. Hello there. Special hello to all the members for the channel. Good to see you there as well. I'm Natalie, and this is Scientology Life After a Cult, where I share the different things that have the internet buzzing in regard to Scientology news, talk about my 35 years in Scientology with 3 generations of my family, and do what is my favorite thing, which is interviewing people in and around the community. That is something that I'm doing today. I'd like to ask you all to do me a favor as you're coming in and hit that like button so it helps us get out those notifications. And be sure as well to hit the subscribe button and set your notification bell so you get those notifications, hopefully, when I go live. Thank you so much to my mods. Dip Me in Glitter is here and Tony is here. We just can we're going to be getting the party started. I'm very excited about my interview today. I've been looking forward to this for a long time. And I think you guys have too. The stars aligned. We were able to get connected. And I would like to welcome Tory Christman, as you know, as Tory Maggoo 44. Let's get her unmuted though. Welcome, Tory. Hip, hip, hooray.
Hey, truly, thank you. So great to meet you live.
You as well. Tori and I got to have a conversation yesterday on the phone, and it was exactly what it was so helpful. It was what I needed. It was a breath of fresh air. Enjoyed chatting with you. And I've been excited about this interview because, Tori, I don't know if you know this. You might have heard this because I've mentioned it before. When I was leaving Scientology, when I decided to leave in 2008, and I was going on to the Scientology message board secretly down in my basement. I would open my computer, get on the Scientology message board, read all the naughty stuff I was never supposed to see, and then I would clear my history and shut the computer. But you were on there a lot with different people who shared so much. And that's part of why I'm so passionate about being here on YouTube, sharing my story and the story of others, because I know how much it helped me when I was leaving Scientology. So you go way back. You've been speaking out against Scientology for over 24 years, correct?
Correct. And the ironic thing is I had called Stacy Brooks, who helped me. I was here in LA. They were in Clearwater, Florida with the Lisa McPherson Trust. And they said they'll help me. So I had said, I'm not going to speak out. I called her back after we set everything up. And I said, look, I'm not going to speak out. I'm not going to make videos, and I'm not going to pick it. So I just want to make that clear. And she said, Tori, we're only doing for you what we wish someone had done for us when we left the Sea Org. And that was she and Jesse Prince. And, but then literally between LAX and Tampa, Florida, because the vice president was at LAX. They had my husband fly in from Chicago, and Osa was there. And then Osa was in Tampa airport at 1:45 in the morning, and a mob of people and the police and Stacy, Bob, and Jesse. So in that time, from LAX to Tampa airport at 1:45 in the morning, I became an activist. It was like I wasn't going to say anything. I didn't even believe they did this shit. But they proved it in that time period. They do what all these critics had told me. I was like, no, they don't. You're just reading stuff off the internet. Yes, they do. They do.
Wow, that is amazing because I've heard you say that before too, that you actually weren't going to be a critic. Like many of us, we just want to leave.
Right.
And we're willing to leave quietly.
Yeah, under the radar. And if they would have just left me alone, I would have been under the radar. But they couldn't do that.
No,
and they kept picking on me too. That's the other thing. For many years, 24 years is a long time, but many, many, many times I'd be like, all right, that's it. I'm done. I'd turn off my, my computer. It was just like, I'm done. I don't, other people are doing this shit. I don't need to. Oops, sorry. Other people are doing this stuff, and I don't need to. And then they would pick on me some more. And I'd be like, okay. You want to flatten my tires? Well, you know what? I got something else to say. And I would turn on my webcam.
That is so true. That is exactly what ends up happening is they can't leave well enough alone. And Scientology will just repeatedly create their own enemies and antagonism and take no responsibility for it.
Right. I mean, look what happened with these new live streamers. Jessica was just making these very funny videos about
Mhm.
the testing center, and Streets just happened to be around the HGB and Streets LA, and they said, "Get the hell out of here," and he was like, "Pardon me." And that both of them became critics, and then they canceled they were on what do you call it, TikTok, and they canceled both of their accounts, and overnight, just like they're gone. And
Yeah.
Jessica, I think, had what, 20 million followers or something. I mean, it was
Or
a
like
huge,
1.7 million or something.
it was a lot. It was a lot, and they just that was it. So she went over to YouTube, and now they're on YouTube. But it really turned her from kind of a joking TikTok, funny videos to, wait a second, I have something to say about this.
Yeah, very much so, very much so. They just
Yeah,
can't leave it alone. I just wanna thank Susie for becoming a member of the channel. Thank you so much for that.
yeah.
I appreciate it. And Luna's mom, thank you so much for the super. Tori got William Osa dude at the Blue Building to smile on Sunday. I'm not sure which guy William was, but
You mean
apparently
probably the policeman, I think. I think it was the policeman.
maybe, and
Because
I think you were talking
Odo
to
was the
Odo.
other person that I got. Odo and I he's a security guard at the complex. And a lot of people don't like him because he's been kind of nasty. But I knew him years ago when they could talk, and they would come out and we would have long conversations about leaving and, the Sea Org, and, what happened and why we left and stuff like that. And now they can't say anything. So I didn't recognize him when he had that big black beard and the hat, the cowboy hat. And so I said to him, like I would say to a Sea Org member, I just was there, and I said, "Look, you didn't get into Scientology to stop free speech,
Yeah.
right?" And he didn't say anything. And I went and sat down, and somebody said Odo, and I said, "Is Odo here?" And they said, "Yeah, that's him. You were talking to him." And so I went back. I said, "Odo, it's Tory." And he goes, "I know." And I go, "Drew and I have been very worried about you. We thought he either died or he was on the RPF. We didn't know, but we were really worried about him for a long time."
Wow. Do you think you mentioned that back in the day, security, they were more loose about speaking with the protesters and activists. They were allowed to talk to you. You had conversations with him about leaving the Sea Org and leaving Scientology. But we've seen that today there are no conversations. They are not allowed to communicate. Do you think that that might be in part because you were one of those people sent to handle protesters?
Oh,
You
yeah.
did communicate and have conversations.
Right.
You also then left Scientology. So do you think this is the Tory rule that Scientology has now come up with?
Well, I'm not going to take responsibility for the whole thing. I think it's a combination, but I do think I contributed to it. I wouldn't call it the Tory rule, but thank you for saying that. I don't know. It might be. I don't know. It could be. I don't know if it's me or a combination of more than one person that spoke out, but but I was the main person that they sent out to handle the critics. And believe it or not, many times they would leave. And I would go back in, and Osa would say, "What did you do?" And I'd say, "I just talked to them. They're just people with a different viewpoint. That's all."
Yeah.
And so then I finally met Laurel Sullivan, who was L. Ron Hubbard's personal PR at Nancy Maney's house years ago. And I had heard she was LRH's personal PR. So I said, "Look, I have to ask you this question." And she said, "Okay, what is it?" And I said, "They used to send me out to handle the critics, and they would leave.
Mhm.
But the Sea Org always goes, 'What are your overts? What are your crimes? Who did you murder?' All that shit. Oops, sorry, all that stuff."
Yeah.
And and I'm sorry about that. I'm bad with
Quite all right.
using 4-letter words, and I'm trying to not do that. So now I forgot what I was saying. So what was I talking about?
You're saying that the way that Scientology will create their own critics and how security used to be able to communicate with critics or people protesting and activists, but they're no longer allowed to do that.
Right,
It's
right.
it's
So it's truly like, because they were sending me out to handle them, right? And then I asked Laurel Sullivan. That was the word. See, remember I said it. You just need to say a key word.
Yeah.
Laurel Sullivan was it. You just have to remember the key thing. I'll explain it to everyone because I have to say it after this. But anyway, I said to Laurel Sullivan, why am I able to handle this and the Sea Org can't? Because it was really confusing to me. And she looks at me and she goes like this, "You never did the LRH PR course, did you?" And I said, and I thought about my dad, and my dad was a broadcaster. He's in the Football Hall of Fame. And then in the 60s, he was a broadcaster on NBC with Kurt Gowdy. And he was very funny. That's where my name comes from. Tory is my name. Maggoo is his name. That's what I named him Mr. Maggoo because he was funny. And he got a lot of people to watch football and understand it that didn't, per other football players. And 44 is his football number. There you go. Which Scientology never helped me ever know anything about my dad. Mark Plummer, bless his heart, who passed away just recently, he went, when I escaped out, he went to the football card store and my dad has 4 cards. I had no idea. That's one of them. It was just like, it just meant so much to me. Here's someone who doesn't even know me. And he went and he mailed them to me. And so I gave my son 2 and I kept 2. So it was really cool.
That is super cool. That's really
cool. Laurel said, "You never did the PR course, right?" And I said, "No." And she said, "Well, we who did were kicked out of every single port in the world." So I always say, no, I don't use Scientology because people go, well, Scientology helped you communicate with those police at the protest on Easter. And I'm like, no, it wasn't Scientology. I just used what my parents taught me. My parents were kind of natural PRs. And, I just grew up with communication and good communication skills.
Yeah. Because did you see how things progress later? Let's look at that. When you would go out and have conversation with protesters, even be able to get them to leave at times. And they were like, how did you do that? Fast forward to you look at how Tommy Davis screaming in the face of John Sweeney. If
Right.
anybody saw that interview, that's an example of how Scientology, just creates more antagonism with people who have questions for them.
And Tommy Davis, just so you guys know, because a lot of these guys probably didn't see that interview, but he goes, "You're invalidating my faith." And I fired up my webcam and I said, "Your faith? Scientology doesn't have faith.
Yeah.
There isn't a faith. They don't believe in God. They don't believe in anything that would give you faith. They believe in the tech, but that isn't a faith."
Yeah.
And so I was like, what is your faith, Tommy? It was like, he was just, and soon after that, he left. I mean, soon after the interview where he mentioned, or the interviewer was going to mention Xenu. And he said, "Don't say it. Don't say it." And the interviewer was going to go into it. And he said, "Okay, I'm walking out." And he took off his microphone and walked off. And that was it. They kicked him out. I don't know if they kicked him out, but he vanished for a long time.
Yeah, he was gone for a while after that. And it was just it was a fiasco it just continued to be a fiasco. But it speaks to how they became more isolated. Scientology did.
Totally.
More, which is bizarre to me because you'll send people out, you'll infiltrate other groups to give legitimacy to Scientology. Why can't you take that same communication or willingness at least and apply that to people who might have a disagreement with you?
Exactly.
But
I
they
mean,
don't.
it's like they sell freedom. First of all, you can't sell freedom. You can't. It just it isn't a product that you can sell. You see, it's not like a T-shirt. It's freedom. Do you see what I mean? But they actually sell it. And the higher up you get, so people know, I always tell them this, it's like a triangle. And you start out at the bottom. It used to be $40 for the communication course. Last Christmas, we went by the complex and there was a guy there. They were selling him $5,000 worth of auditing. First time he'd ever walked in the door.
Oh
And
my goodness.
this guy came walking down the street and I said, "Can I talk to you?" And he came over and I said, "What's the deal with all the lights?" And he said, "I don't know, but they're nice lights." And I thought, okay, he's a Scientologist. And I said, are you a Scientologist? And he goes, hell no, I'm an ex-Jehovah's Witness. And I said, well, what are you doing here? And he goes, well, my friend is in there doing their personality test. I said, okay, get him out right now. And he came out, and he was a wrestler. And by then I started a live Facebook thing just so it was on video, because I'd never seen somebody actually physically go in the org for the first time, right? This
Yeah.
was the first time. So I start my live video, and he goes, are you making a video? And I said, you're not on it. Don't worry. And he goes, no, put me on it. I want to show you my personality test. And he whips it up, and it's like up and down and up and down. And he goes, yeah, they say I'm really crazy. And that's why I need the $5,000. I said, they say everyone's crazy. That's how they get people in. Money. The security zooms up, and they take him inside. And I say to his friend, go get him. And he goes in, he goes, the doors are locked. And I said, okay, call him on a cell phone. And he calls him, and I said, get him out here. And he comes out here, and I said, look, don't give him the $5,000. I'll tell you about it tomorrow, but these guys it's a scam. It's a cult. They're going to take your money, and I was in it 30 years. I promise you, it's like a triangle. I was at the top, except OT8's the top. I was OT7, but I paid a lot of money, and the higher you go, the less freedoms you have. It's really ironic, because they're selling freedom, but the higher you go, the more you pay, the less, they're like, Natalie, we're counting on you not to say a word. I went, when John Travolta had the Battlefield Earth, they brought me. It was like, I want you to make sure no critics get to John Travolta. So I said, okay. And I knew him because I helped train him, right?
Would you mean at the opening of the movie Battlefield
Yeah.
Earth? So you were there helping out. Were you kind of like his handler then, to just be a buffer?
I was with OSA, and they wanted to make sure no critics got to John Travolta. So that's the beginning. The movie happens. Now, afterwards, they have a secret party. And Gavino says, okay, and Yachty, because Yachty was my auditor, and Cora, my handler for OSA. And I wasn't on staff. I was just a volunteer. So he goes, all right, we're going to this secret party. And I said, okay. So, we go to the party. Travolta walks up. He goes, Tory. And he gives me a big hug. He goes, I'll never forget you and Vicky. And I said, I love you too. Because I do. He's a great guy. So even though he's a Scientologist, but I just, and everybody's like, did you tell him, something? And it's like, no, he was going to this party. So then I thought, well, I want to go in the party. So that's the way I am. So I waited till a real tall guy was walking by, and I just walked behind him, and I started walking in, and the guy said, well, do you have one of the top secret badges? And I just looked at him like, come on, give me a break, man. And, no, I'm with him, and so he let me in. He goes, all right, go in. And so Travolta's talking to another celebrity, and I thought, okay, I don't want to interrupt him. What can I do? And I thought, I know, I'll get drinks for Gavino and Yachty. So I come out with these alcoholic drinks, and I say, I really want to congratulate you guys on your top secret security.
And who were those two guys? Were those two guys with Scientology?
Yeah, it was Gavino, who was on staff with OSA, and Bill Yachty, who was an auditor and CS out at the Enhancement Center in the day. And in the morning and the night, he worked for OSA trying to handle the internet. And that's how I got into this, because he said, you need to help us. And I was like, okay, I was always, all right, I'll help the church, that kind of thing. And so they snapped me into it.
So then you got involved when the internet was starting to become a thing, because prior to that, Scientology just had to deal with critics who would show up in person, right? There wasn't where it was being sent and shared with the way the internet is today, where anybody can pop onto a multitude of platforms and have a voice and share that. Right. This did not exist that way. No. But tell me what it was like. How did Scientology respond to the internet? Like, when you look back on that, what do you remember what their response was like? Did they think that, well, this isn't going to take off, or we can still hide it?
I think they thought they could handle it. They always think they can handle things. And it's like, if you just look at the statistics, ours have gone up, 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 ours being the critics, right? Yeah. It's like there's thousands, millions more critics than there were in the 90s. But in the 90s is when Yachty, my auditor and best friend, said, look, we've got to handle these people on the internet. I mean, it's just a nightmare. And I need you to do something. And I said, all right, what do you need me to do? And he said, just open this one account. That's all I need you to do is open a phony account and I'll use it to handle these critics. And I said, okay, what are you going to do about it? And he said, I'm not going to tell you, because if I tell you, they're really evil and they'll get you in deposition, which is really what Scientology does. But I didn't know that. And he said, they'll get you in deposition and grill you to death. And you don't want that, Tory. And he knew, I have my memory thing, because for anybody that doesn't know, I have epilepsy. They took me off my medicine. I had tons of grand mal seizures. My new neurologist just told me this for the first time. I'm 76 years old. And he goes, yeah, if you have seizures, they directly affect your memory forever. So I could have sued them, but I didn't want to for a number of personal reasons. But, it's like they really screwed me up. And so I try to tell people, don't ever, because if you have a physical condition, they're like, oh yeah, Scientology can handle that. So I was in the Sea Org and I ran out of my medicine and I said, I've got to get a refill. And they said, well, we'll send you to the MLO, which is the medical liaison officer, which was an 18-year-old kid who knew nothing about medicine, and said, you've got to get off your medicine. And he was like this. He said, we're the top 10% of the planet and we don't take medicine. And I was like, oh, okay. I was like 21. My mother's like, Tory, this is a physical condition. It's not psychosomatic.
Yeah.
You need your medicine. And I was like, oh no, Dianetics is going to handle it. Honestly, Mom, it is. And she stayed on it and she saved my life. She really did. Because she said, she called me every day after a while and she said, okay, what are you doing tonight? And I said, I'm going out on a date. She said, okay, I'll call you tomorrow. So she called me the next day. She's in Chicago. I'm in LA. She calls me and she goes, how was your date? And I said, what date? And she said, okay, that's it. And her dad is a doctor, my grandfather. And I think they were liaisoning. And she said, look, here's the deal. Either you're on your medication today and your doctor calls me, which was Dr. Denk, Hubbard's doctor, and says you are on your medication, or I, your mother, I'm going to fly from Chicago to LA, and trust me on this story, L. Ron Hubbard and the Church of Scientology will never forget your mother. And I knew my mom, she could kick ass. And I thought, okay, and who wants to have a seizure anyway? So now I had a reason. But that's why I always say to people, whenever I speak, I get off on these tangents, or it's like an extra branch and then I can't remember. So somebody in the audience has to remember what I'm talking about and kind of follow it. And like DOA said, wow, it's amazing. You just need one word. That's it. And then I'm back. But it has to be the word I'm talking about. It can't be like a whole big theory thing, or it's too complicated. Yeah.
Sure. What have you thought about, you've made so many new friends recently because you've connected with Jessica Palmadessa, DOA, Laura FM, just so many different people. What has it been like for you to connect with this new generation of protesters with Scientology?
It has been incredible. I mean, I'm so proud of them. You have to get, there were like probably for years, maybe 10 of us that were protesting.
Yeah.
That's it. Now you have to get there may be only 10 of them, but they have thousands of people on their cameras. You know what I mean? They're filming and they're doing live streaming. So what happened is Andrew, my friend, called me and said, you've got to go on TikTok and type in Jessica Palmadessa. And I said, Andrew, I don't do TikTok. And he says, type in Jessica Palmadessa. So I did. And there she was with this camera right up against her face. And she's like, do you think I'm intimidated by this? I have like 2 million followers or whatever. It was 20 million or whatever. And they're on TikTok and they're all watching you right now. And I was like, oh my God, thank God. It was like when Anonymous showed up for me. They showed up in 2008. I had left and escaped out in 2000. So for 8 years, most people would not speak out. Most people that are now interviewers were still in or just left in 2008. Like Mark Hadley came up to me at the first picket. The first picket, we had 9,000 people in every major city in the world. Imagine me. I mean, I had been like in this alleyway fighting Scientology, feeling like they were trying to rape me, right? By myself with 4 other people that would speak out. That was it. There rest of the people were all nicknames and nobody knew who they were. We could kind of tell, like Hadley, we could tell, okay, this guy had to be up at Int or something because he knew so many stories, but he wouldn't say who he was. And I was like, just say who you are, please. So finally, to imagine seeing this anonymous setting up this picket, which was because they called me and they had other plans. And I said, look, they're going to put you in prison. No, we're not doing that. And they said, well, what can we do? And I said, let's do a peaceful protest. They can't arrest us with that.
Yeah.
So now imagine they go, okay, we'll have 500 people here in LA. And I think, yeah, right. We've had 10 people for 8 years. Now you're going to have 500 people. They did. They had 500 people and 9,000 around the world. So it was just like, it just changed overnight. Mark Headley came up. Hi, I'm blown for good. I'm Mark Headley. This is my wife, Claire Headley. Jenna Miscavige, just all these people that I'd been in touch with online, but I didn't know them. All of a sudden, I knew these people and it was like, oh, thank God. And the media also, who had been like filming me for an hour for 8 years on all kinds of different stuff, but they would always whittle it down to Tom Cruise or another celebrity. And I'd have like 5 minutes and look the worst. And whatever I said that was sort of stupid, that's what would be my thing. Now Nightline goes, no, we want to talk to these guys. All of a sudden the media was willing to tell our side of the story. So it was pretty cool.
It's such an interesting history to me. And seeing you out there in Los Angeles, there in your chair, and DOA is doing his thing, and Lara FM is there, and you guys are just hanging outside the blue buildings and protesting and live streaming all together.
I know. It's really fun for me, and I think it is for them too, because it's sort of like the old, which is me, and like Jessica's very young, but we really like each other. She came over and did an interview with me, a live stream to show me what it was like, and she's so talented. I mean, it's really amazing. All of them are. So that's, for me, it's like outstanding because they know all this tech stuff that I don't know anything. I'm like, what should I do? And they go, just click here and everything goes away that I thought was bad. But for them, I think I can help them because I know all the Scientology stuff. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
Not everything, but I don't by any means, but I know a lot of stuff. And so it's kind of a give and take. That's what I think.
It has to be interesting too for them to hear and understand, especially changes that Scientology has made in how they handle or deal with critics or stir up more antagonism, whatever you want to call it, to, the not like for them to hear, wait a minute, there was a time when they would have conversations with you. What?
Right. I know, that's what everyone, they were like, why is Odo talking to you? And I'm like, Odo's my friend. I mean, we used to talk for hours. I mean, really, literally, Drew and I for many years have said, we've got to go check where Odo is.
And this was when you were an ex-Scientologist that you guys were friends. You were out there protesting Scientology.
I mean, I wouldn't say friends, you know what I mean? It's not like he came over to dinner or something. He was a security guard, but we considered him someone we liked, someone that would talk to us, because there were security guards even back then that wouldn't talk at all. There's just sort of different people, but Odo would always talk to Drew and I and a couple other people. Lynn came and, we had a little group of people. What happened was Anonymous showed up in 2008. They had 500 people here, right? And Scientology, because Anonymous, and I agree with it, and I talked to him about this, it's like set a date like a month in advance. So then you're going to get a mob of people. If you just say it the day before, you're going to get 5 people. That's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So they would do it, and there would be a mob of people. But also OSA would find out about it. See, so the first time I think they were thrown off because they didn't really think there'd be 500 people in their work. The second time they put up this gigantic screen at the end of L. Ron Hubbard Way. I mean, as tall as LA Org is, a huge screen playing Tom Cruise movies all day. We're across the street. We're across the street protesting with signs. But they're, so everyone had to get inventive because they were there blocking us all the time.
Yeah. Wow. It's just so different now that was done. I'm going to grab some questions here. Okay. I wanted to say thank you, Julie, for the super sticker there. Thank you for that.
And
Ham
any
it
of
up.
you can come to my site and subscribe too, Tory Maggoo 44.
I'm going to share a link to your channel. Ham it up again. Thank you so much for the super. I adore and appreciate you more than you could know, Natalie and our Tony. Thank you, Ham it up. That's really sweet.
I
Uh,
know.
Lumi Dawa says, Tori, glad to catch you live. Do you know who Jane is from the Leonard Cohen song?
I don't. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I don't either. Panko, thank you for becoming a member of the channel. Thank you so much.
Well,
Unstable Datum is asking, Tori, did Dr. Dank have any immediate family who were also into Scientology who might still be alive?
that's a good question, and I don't know. I really only knew him, but I will say this: a lot of people don't like him because a ton of Scientologists die. I mean, they die all the time. It's frightening. And I finally went to him, I think in the '90s, in the early '90s, and I said, because this one guy was the cramming officer at AO, which is like correction, and he would come out, Steve Miller, and he'd go, Tori, you've got to, I got to tell you who died now. And I'd be like, okay, who died now? And he'd list out all these people that I knew. And see, they'd never have funerals. They'd never announce it unless the person is an opinion leader. And then they'd have a big funeral, but only that. So I was like really ticked off after a while. And so I went to see Dr. Denk and I said, look, and he'd gotten me my medicine because of my mother. Right. Yeah. And so he's pro medicine. But so I said, look, I got to talk to you. And he said, all right, come in my office. And I said, what the hell's going on? Why are all these people dying? I don't get it. And he said, Tori, honestly, these are people that all insist on doing all natural for cancer. And he said, every person from our center that has done all natural is dead. He said, so, and that's the thing. He said, I can't control that. If they want to go down to Mexico and get, which they all did and still do, you know, and die, that's not on me. Do you know what I mean? He didn't say that, but I know he was thinking that. But I was thinking that, and I try to let people know, because a lot of people have heard he killed all these people, but he didn't. He wanted them to do medical. And he said, some people who did medical and some natural, some lived, some died. Those are our statistics. That's it. So
yeah, that is really
what your
interesting.
original question was. What was your original question?
It was about whether or not Dr. Dank had any family, and I'm not aware of that either, but it is interesting what you're saying about how, and he was L. Ron Hubbard's personal physician. Dr. Dank was also the doctor who, when I first got married in this organization, when I was 17, and I think I was 18 when I had a miscarriage and didn't know that I was having one, what it was. I didn't know I was pregnant. And I went and saw Dr. Dank, who put me on birth control. And it's interesting about not treating people getting the actual medical care that they would need. Dr. Dank's been gone a while, but think about who Scientology has lost even recently to cancer. Kirstie Alley,
Right.
John Travolta's wife, Kelly Preston, and pretty darn close to each other. And what you're saying rings true for me, because they're very much it's fine. There's different modalities and treatments that people can have, but you make a good point. There is an excessively large number of Scientologists that die from diseases that makes you question, had they gotten more mainstream care for that, would they have done better?
I know they would have. I think they would have. I mean, per Dr. Dank, like some people who did some medical, some natural, some lived, some died. So some people are going to pass away, but medicine has come a long way with cancer, a long way. It really has. So that's a really, it's sort of like, I feel like my Tony, hold on.
Yeah, absolutely. Karma's asking, so in the 1980s, Scientology had a history of getting Scientologist parents to take their kids out of the country to a camp, then return. Do you think this is still happening? I don't recall a camp out of the country if you're talking about the United States.
No,
yeah,
they didn't take them out of the country. They had a ranch up north where they put the kids.
Yeah. That maybe that's what it was. Fizzy. Why? I don't know what that means. Yo-yos, they don't look happy. I think he means security. I know you don't know for sure, but do you think they think they're happy? Well, maybe he means Scientologists in the Sea Org, or they don't have a desire to be happy and instead non-reactive, thus not emotional. I think the question is, do you think that Sea Org members are happy?
Well, you have to remember, I always use the analogy of the Truman Show. Have you ever seen that? If you haven't, watch the Truman Show, because that's Scientology. And Truman basically was in a movie, but he's the only one that didn't know it was a movie, right?
Yeah.
And so all these people are set up, all day long doing stuff with him. And this lady lived with him and all kinds of stuff. And I'm not going to tell you the whole story. Rent the movie, somehow see it, because it's really important. And it took me, I watched it a ton while I was in. I knew it was, it was like jarring something, but I didn't know what. And I just kept thinking, okay, I'm going to watch it again. And I just watched it over and over and over. And I finally, I don't even think then, when I put it together, I got off the plane, and the next day I ran into all these critics, people that were never in Scientology. And they were like, how could you be in something for 30 years and not get it? And I just looked at them, and Jesse Prince was with me, right? And I said, have you ever seen the movie The Truman Show? And they all went like this, oh my God. And I said, that's Scientology. And Jesse said, do you realize we usually spend an hour to 2 hours with these guys and they still don't get it? And now in 1 minute, you've mentioned this, and it's like people get it all the time. People who've seen the Truman Show go, oh, and then I go, and I always carry these business cards. I told Nat, I always carry these little business cards,
Yeah.
because people will not keep flyers. If just think of yourself. If somebody gives you a flyer, you might, but a lot of times you just throw them out. And
Yeah.
we were picketing and giving out flyers, and I finally said, screw this. So I made these cards with Xenu on it, because that's, everyone always likes to hear about Xenu. And then it has, different websites on it. But I do it every day. I give people, every time I see a young person, I go, you know what? I want you to know something. Your life is in danger. And they go, what? I'm at the store. And they go, why would my life be in danger? And I go, you're 15 minutes from Scientology. I was in it for 30 years. And they go, really? And I go, yeah. And they go, I watched Leah's show, but I thought, no way, it can't be happening. I go, all right, here's my card. Put it away. Put it in your wallet, because if your owner, if the boss is a Scientologist, they just may fire you if they see that card. They go like this, whoa, and they put it away right away. It's very effective. And I do it every day. If I run into someone who speaks 2 languages, I do the same thing. Your life is in danger. Why? You speak 2 languages. Scientology is after anybody who speaks 2 languages now. That's a thing. They've already been through America with the white community. You know what I mean? So now they're doing America with the African American, Hispanic, just Asian, any other cultures they're doing. And those guys often aren't, unfortunately, a lot of our videos are not in various different languages.
Yeah, that's true.
And I've been trying to get someone to speak, who speaks Spanish at least, to start with that, because then the Spanish community could get educated on it, because I feel like we're just sending them out. That's why I do it every day. I run into them and I go, they're after you. And they're like, really? And I go, yeah, definitely. You need to learn about it.
Yeah, they definitely are targeting, we've heard a lot of reports of how they're targeting the Latino community, specifically in Los Angeles,
Right.
and even immigrants, and taking advantage of people's desperation to have a visa.
Yeah.
Then they get you and you're trapped and you can't get away.
And I knew that. So now I go up to a testing, because they have their stress test table out. And so I went up there, and I knew it was a lady from another country. I could just look at her and see it. And she was from Germany. And I said, hello. And she goes, how are you? Would you like a stress test? And I said, sure. So I sit down and I pick up the cans, and she goes, what are you stressed about today? And I said, David Miscavige. And the meter goes like this. And I said, that read, didn't it? And now this guy comes running down the street. He goes, don't talk to her. Don't talk to her. She declared suppressive. Don't talk to her. And I said, and I'd already given her the card. I said, you do your own research. Don't put it away. Do your own research. Get on the internet. The information is there.
Yeah. That's
So I
very
always I get it out to people, and I think if
yeah.
everyone did this, it would be hands down. It would really help. And
Yeah.
it would help the people so they wouldn't get in. Think
I
of that guy, Christmas. He was going to give him $5,000. And I forgot to tell you the rest of it. I called him the next day to make sure they didn't get him, because in the old days, they would go out there the next day. I said, did they come? And he goes, no, and I'm going to Japan. And I said, okay, good. And I said, and he goes, but he had come out and he was kind of white as a sheet, because they took him back in. And I said, just so you know, they hate me. So they're going to tell you some lies about me, because
Yeah.
they've had lies up on the internet about me forever. And so he comes out and he's kind of white as a sheet. And he goes, wow, they really hate you. And I said, I warned you. So
Yeah.
the next day I call him and I go, what exactly did they say about me? Because
Mhm.
I thought, I know their lies. And I thought, okay, they're going to say one of these things. And he goes, no, they said you're a deep cover, undercover CIA agent. And I just burst out laughing. I was like, oh my God, I've been upgraded from declared suppressive person, which this is from the Church of Scientology. And it's
Look
all
at
my,
that. You got a copy of your declare. I never got a copy of mine.
I know. I only got it because Jesse said they never send them out anymore.
Yeah.
Nobody, you'll never get one. And so I came back home and they had broken into my house, stripped everything, stripped my computer. And I know it was Bill Yachty because Harold wouldn't let in OSA. So I know it was Yachty just came in and said, we got to do this. We got to do that. We got to get rid of these things because Tori's all fucked up and she's listening to these people. And, I know their drill.
Yeah.
So everything was gone. So, and I wanted my receipts because I had money at Flag. So
Yeah.
I called Flag and I said, I want to talk to Treasury. And they said, who is this? And I said, it's Tory Bazazian. That was my married name. And they put me right through to this young girl and she goes, Continental Justice Chief, can I help you? And I said, this is Tory Bazazian. And she goes, oh, do you want to know why you're talking to the Continental Justice Chief? And I said, yeah, I do. I knew why, but I wanted her to say it. And she goes,
Mhm.
you've been declared suppressive. And I knew she was a really young kid, and Sea Org guys have a lot of sometimes importance on who they are. And I said, you might be too young to know this policy. And this is a policy every Scientologist knows. But so of course she would, as the Continental Justice Chief. But I said, L. Ron Hubbard wrote this policy. If it isn't in writing, it isn't true. And I have nothing in writing, so it isn't true. And she goes, I'll have it to you within 24 hours. And I said, I'll believe it when I get it. So that's why I laminated it, because she sent it. She FedExed it to me and I got it. And on the back, it says, her only terminal is the International Justice Chief via the Continental Justice Chief. And that's why I talked to him on Easter, because they had said, you're trespassing, you can't come in here. So I
Yeah.
finally got around that CO guy because he was just nothing. And this police were in there, these lady police. And they said, really, you're trespassing, you can't. I said, okay, listen to me carefully. They owe me $1 million. My only terminal is the IJC, which it doesn't matter if you know what that is or not. It's one person, and that person has not talked to me in 24 years. So I want my $1 million back. And the police lady goes, well, you know what? It's not going to happen today. And I said, and you know what? They say that every single time. So I am staying here until you either get my $1 million or the International Justice Chief to come talk to me. That's it. And that's why they let me stay there, because it was like they didn't have $1 million and they knew they couldn't get the IJC. It was like, I heard him say to the cops, just let her be. It was just like, just leave her alone.
Let her be. Let her be. She's 76 years old. Let her be.
But it wasn't my age. It was that I had a point and they knew it. The women got it. They kind of went, I get it. They got it. The men cops were pretty mean to me, except that one guy that I was talking to. And I started educating him on, why do you think we're here? He said, I don't know. This is just a job for me. And I said, well, it's not just a job for us. Do you want to know why that lady is yelling on the megaphone? And he goes, yeah, why is she? And I said, see those bricks that you're standing on? And I asked him before, do you have kids? And his youngest was 5. And I said, okay, those bricks that you're standing on, she helped lay. I mean, she didn't actually physically lay them because she was too little, but she was there as, helping kind of thing. And he said, really? And I said, yeah. So she's very passionate. She doesn't want your kids to get into it. And he was like, yeah. All of a sudden he went from being like against everybody to like, okay, I see nothing. I'm just
There's
standing here.
nothing here.
Yeah.
That's great. It's so impactful to have those conversations, which is why Scientology does not let their people talk to Scientology anymore. I mean, talk to non-Scientologists.
I have one other story I want to tell you. Can I tell you it?
Absolutely.
It was author services
Yeah.
used to be where Miscavige ran his shit out of, right?
Mhm.
And he used to live behind there. So we go by there periodically because we don't know if he comes or not, but we just kind of cruise by there. So this time we go by there, and this big, beefy military guy comes up, and you could tell he's not Sea Org. This
Yeah.
guy's military. And he goes, and my friend says, where's David Miscavige? And he goes, I don't know. And they just start in on it with each other. Where is he? I don't know. Where is he? It's your job, bop, bop, bop. And I think this is not going well. They're going to call the police. And so I just dive in and I look at the guy and I go, do you want to know why we're even here? Do you know why we're here? And he goes, honestly, I don't. And I said, okay, those people that run this thing that you're working for owe me $1 million and they won't talk to me. So that's why we're here. And he just gets white. I mean, he literally changes from being this kind of mean military guy to like, oh my God. And I said, that's what you're supporting, whether you know it or not. And he kind of turns white, and the CEO guy comes running around the corner and he goes, get out of here, get in the garage. And he pushes the guy in the garage, shuts the door. That's it. So it's just those kind of things. I try to let people know it's like education is a big deal. And
Yeah.
if you educate people, they change, a lot of times because they don't know. Just like that cop. He said, no, I have no idea, why you're here. But after I told him, he wasn't mad at Laura anymore. He was like, okay, yell as loud as you want it loud. I don't want my kids in this thing.
Yeah, then they know better why. I
Yeah.
wanted to share, if you have not already, please be sure to go over and subscribe to Tory Maggoo 44. You can see her page here. Tell me about this. I hear you're doing a midnight live stream. You were the night owl. Tell me more about this midnight live stream that you're doing.
Well, first of all, I love your show. And so it's in the morning, but I'm not a morning person.
Yeah.
So I watch your thing to catch up. And then there's people all day long that have their own streams. There's a lot of streaming going on. And I'm kind of a night owl. So one night, it was just almost a joke. And I thought, well, I think I'll try midnight with Maggoo, just for fun, right? And a ton of people came on. They went, oh, we love this. I mean, it's not thousands, it isn't, but it's hundreds. And I also get Europe because they're just waking up. And they tell me, we have our newspaper here and Midnight with Maggoo. We watch it every day for breakfast. So it's kind of fun. We've got the whole day covered, and Scientology's got to be having a nightmare. It's like, how are we going to get rid of these people?
Yeah, I know. That's the best thing. That's like my favorite thing is knowing how much Scientology hates that we're live streaming, especially people in the ex-Scientology community.
Right.
Because we know how much they absolutely hate it, especially when we show up and are being like, hey, there's so much freedom after Scientology. There's so much support that's out there.
Right.
They just can't stand it. And then when we expand these channels and grow, I feel like, every time a new person subscribes to our channels, David Miscavige gets a little shorter.
Yes, exactly. And I've said this for years. Every voice counts because some people kind of treat people that are on here like, well, I'm just interested in the people that are running the show. And I'm like, no, you wouldn't have a show without these people.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? They're very important to all of us. And their voice counts. And it does. Every voice counts. And especially in Scientology, they have all these echelons. And so people are like, well, I was a commanding officer and stuff like that. And it's like, look, you're nothing. You're out in the world today. So get a grip, get it together, and start respecting these other people that are helping you with your your live stream or whatever you're doing. I mean, this was before live stream and they were just making videos, but then people would come on and communicate. And one of my friends who's ex-Sea Org said, why do you even talk to these people? You don't even know them. And I said, you have to understand, when she left, a whole group of people left together with her. So I said, you have your little network of friends and they're all ex-Sea Org and you're all together. And I get that.
Yeah.
But I had nothing. I had nothing. For 24 hours, Andreas was the only person that would talk to me at all for 24 hours. And then once I got out, it was Stacy, Bob, and Jesse, and Mark Bunker. That was it. And Scientology immediately, Bill Yachty, who was my auditor and best friend, started coming on the internet saying, don't trust Tory. She's an undercover
CIA agent.
Well, he didn't say CIA, but he said I was an OSA agent. And people knew OSA was awful, so that everyone turned on me. Everyone. It was awful. I mean, it was
that is a tactic. And it's funny to me because I know that still there's in the modern day with like the internet and there's almost even more ways to pretend to be somebody that you're not. But what Scientology doesn't count on is the fact that number one, anybody streaming on YouTube, we're not afraid of they aren't afraid of you finding out who they are for the most part.
Right.
Their face is out there. They're doing this, especially the live streamers and protests that show up, the protesters who show up to live stream Scientology in person. They're just not going to care. They also don't count on the fact, they did not count on the fact that so many people never in Scientology would be able to hear these messages, these stories, and become enraged and understand that Scientology is a human trafficking cult. They never counted that so many people, they thought that, well, if we talk bad about this person in their community, they'll lose their job. Or if we go to this person in their community, they won't have that support. They can't do that with the internet. There are more people on this side of things. And the other thing is these days, we just don't care. It's what are you going to do? You're going to follow us.
That's the thing that I always remind them. It's like they really don't do big stuff overall. They've done some big things, but overall they do nitpicky stuff. It's called gaslighting. And that's what they do. They, like the first thing they did when I came back was they started breaking off the legs of my ceramic turtle. and my one friend who said, why do you talk to those people? I called her. And she said, oh, Tory, you're just way too paranoid. And I thought, okay, she never worked in OSA. I know that. She worked at Celebrity Center. So she doesn't know what I'm talking about. I've worked with OSA. So I called up Jesse Prince. And Jesse Prince said to me, Tory, listen to me very carefully. I used to run this program. I know what I'm talking about. It's called psychological warfare. And they are trying to drive you insane. This was in 2000. I was the only, there were very few people speaking out with their phone number and their name. But I only thought there were 50 people on the internet because I'd already shut down the Battlefield Earth thing, which was a little message board. And I called up Warner Brothers and said, look, this is bullshit. I'm a fan. I'm a mother. I'm here in Burbank. And, you've got all these people talking about Scientology and shit. Who cares? I want to hear about John Travolta and get this thing shut down. So, and I'm in sales, so I know how to go up to the top guy, right? Mm-hmm. So he goes, okay, I'll handle it. So I said, okay. And the next day, this guy calls me from New York. This is Mr. So-and-so. Is this Tory Bazazian? And I said, it is. I think I hadn't gotten divorced then. And I said, yeah, it is. And he goes, well, this is Mr. We are shutting down. We got your message and we're shutting down the message board. And I thought, wow, that's pretty cool. And I wasn't talking to OSA anymore because they'd already turned on me. That's another whole story. But they had turned on me and threw me under the bus. And so I was like, all right, I'm not talking to you guys. But I got that shut down. And I thought, well, maybe I can get ARS shut down. Thinking they're 50 people. There's probably only 60 on ARS, right?
And tell people what ARS was.
ARS was the only message board. Back then they had linear. They didn't have websites. It was all linear. So someone would post a topic like L. Ron Hubbard's a liar. Well, they didn't want anybody to see that. That's why they had me open those phony accounts. Because Yachty said, get 10 accounts and I can handle everything. And I was like, all right. So I opened these 10 accounts.
Why didn't Yachty open the accounts himself?
Well, that's a good question, but I think they, you know, I frankly think he didn't think he could get in and do it. He said to me, I'm a person that I'm in sales. I can get into things and out of things. And I'm just good at that. And he knew I could do it. He said they normally don't ever do anything in person. So I think he knew if he walked in, they wouldn't let him in.
Yeah.
But he said, I think you can get in. Everyone does it on the internet, and I didn't know how to do that. He said, just walk in, knock on the door, say, I need to talk to you today. It's an emergency. So I did, and I had a cashier's check. So there was no way they could trace it back to Scientology, right? I used a phony name. We set up a phony account. It was a cashier's check. And I brought the thing back to Yachty. And with this name, he said, just get an email address and a password. That's it. So I got it and I brought it back to him knowing nothing about the internet. Everyone now is hip to the internet and has cell phones and all this shit. But back then we didn't know anything. We had the little emergency cell phone. That was it. And so I brought it back to him, and if he had a grin this big, now he had a grin like as big as California. And he lit up like a light bulb. And I said, what? And he said, you've just changed the history of the internet. And I said, Bill, how can I change the history of the internet when I don't know what it is? But he got me to go around and open up the 10 accounts. Now he's got 10 accounts. And remember, it's linear. So their view was if they could drive down L. Ron Hubbard's a liar, down, 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 and onto the second page, no one would read it.
Yeah.
That was the goal. And the goal of the 10 accounts was someone would say L. Ron Hubbard's a liar. Nobody'd say anything. So he'd come on as Mary and say, well, I don't think that's true. Nobody'd say anything. So then he'd come on as Joe Smith and he'd say, why are you talking about L. Ron Hubbard? Who cares? And then he'd come on as somebody else and he'd say, I had a great golf game today. And this guy would say, oh, really? Tell me about your golf game. Now they're completely off. Now that's a win for them.
Yeah.
They have 3 goals, which is distract off of Scientology, divide and conquer, get everybody fighting with each other, or just slime the area completely. And those are their goals. He didn't tell me that until I was like a day from leaving. But so I didn't really know that, but that is what their goals are. So you can always watch that if you're talking about something hot and then all of a sudden someone's talking about golf. Okay, they might mention their golf game, but if they keep mentioning their golf game, that's when you have to go, okay, something's fishy here. Yeah. And I always say, just repost the topic, just bring it back.
Yeah.
Because maybe they're not a plant. Maybe they're just somebody interested in golf, but you can just repost the topic, L. Ron Hubbard's a liar. And then people will get back to talking about it.
Yeah, that's so true. They're still trolling. It's a lot more obvious. There were more instances of Scientology using Scientologists volunteering for OSA to infiltrate different groups on the internet, but they just can't handle this large number of people speaking out.
Well, remember this also, Yachty set up 10 identities.
Yeah.
So two of the identities, 2 or 3, were obvious OSA trolls. So people would go, that's an OSA troll. And he'd go, bingo. It was just like, because then they'd think we caught the OSA troll.
Yeah.
But there was the other 7 of his identities where he was still running shit on the group. Oops, sorry.
Yeah.
Running stuff.
Swedish Lena says, I absolutely love Tory at midnight. I watch Tory every day from Australia.
Oh, I love Australia.
Cool. Panko, thank you so much for gifting 5 Scientology Life After Occult memberships. Hip, hip, hooray to you. And also to Sandy Bowers for becoming a new member on the channel. I appreciate that support. Are you still in touch with Jesse Prince?
Yes. He sent me a thing because he's sort of like, I'm done with this. And he moved on to Long Beach. But then he saw the protest, not the Easter one, but before that. And he wrote me a little text and he said, let me know for the next one. I'll come. I didn't tell him for Easter because I wasn't going to go. I really wasn't, until I thought, well, it's Easter, and I was going to go out with some friends, and then they got sick. One of them got sick, so it got canceled. So I thought, well, let me see how DOA is doing. I'll check. And he was out there. It was like early in the morning, and he was all by himself. He had the table out there and the hot dogs, and
Yeah, and he did all those flyers.
he did everything. And I thought, I got to do something. So I just wished happy Easter. And he said, get her over there. Get her over there. But I didn't. My big problem was I didn't want to drive over there and have to park miles away and have to walk.
Yeah.
I'm just not good at that. So I said, I kind of have a transportation problem. And you see him, he's like cooking these hot dogs. Wait, I'm trying to show it. He's cooking hot dogs, right? And he goes, somebody get Tory an Uber now. Get her an Uber now. And he said it 3 times, and this lady calls from my house. And she said, I got an Uber account. I'll get you over there. It was, bless her heart, because I wouldn't have gone otherwise.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. So it was
very sweet.
Sofatato says, and I sent Tory the Uber. So it must have been Sofatato.
Oh, thank you so much. It meant so much because I wouldn't have been there, and it ended up being a really great day.
It was a lot of good stuff that was happening. Well, Tory, I know that we are going to do this again because I love talking to you, and I hope that you come back on.
Oh, sure.
And love seeing you out there.
So I'm glad. And I feel bad because I haven't read all the comments. So is there any way we can read the comments afterwards?
Yep, you'll be able to see them. I'll show you how, because you and I are going to do some practicing. So when we log off, I'll pull up and show you some of the other comments. We read most of the questions we were able to get to.
Okay, good.
But I'll show those to you too after we log off, because I know I'm going to see if we can help get you set up on the split screen you were talking about.
Yeah, I'm new at this.
Yep, she's new at that, but be sure, here's her channel, Tory Maggoo 44. Get over there and subscribe. You can catch her Tory Maggoo at midnight on the replay, unless you're up at midnight California time.
Well, I'm kind of like I'm now doing it at 11 because I don't want it to do too late.
Oh, okay.
So, but it's midnight with Maggoo because it goes into midnight. So that's good.
Midnight with Maggoo. I love that. Well, thank you so much, Tory, for being here with us.
It's really an honor to be on here. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
I love chatting with you. You inspired me so much when I left. So for me, this is a real full circle moment, and meeting one of my heroes. Like I said, you were one of my mother's heroes too. We would read the message boards and then talk about it.
Wow. Was your mother in?
Yep. My mother she was on Solo Knot. So she got to operating Thetan level 7.
Maybe I knew her. Was she in the 90s?
Yep. She was in the 90s. I don't think she was on the level till maybe she got on the level at 98. I think when my son was born. Her name was Donna Gail Wilcock.
Oh yeah, I think I do know her.
Yeah,
but I did
with OSA.
Yeah, I probably do know her. Wow.
Yeah.
Is she still alive or not?
No, she passed away 2 years after we left Scientology.
Aw.
Yeah.
Well, good for her. She's free. That's the way I look at it.
That is absolutely right. All right. Well, Tory, you hang tight. I'm going to say goodbye to everybody, but then don't hang up because I'm going to help you figure that thing out.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone, for coming on. Thank you for all your comments and questions. And I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
And thank you, Natalie. You're amazing. I mean, like I said, you're famous.
I'm a big deal on the street I live on.
You're a big deal around the world now. People are watching you because they get the update. It's too much to read all the streams, all day long.
Yeah,
so it helps. It really helps.
But anything we can do to elevate the many voices, as much as we can, so that we can grow this whole protest movement with people protesting Scientology and sharing their stories and getting it out there. And you are doing that every single day with your cards that you're getting out.
But these people can too. If you want to, because people all the time ask me, I want to help. And this is an easy way. Just go find out about Scientology. You don't have to say your life is in danger. You can just say, find out about Scientology. It's worse than you think. That's what we used to always say. Because they go, really? And we say, yeah, believe me, it's worse than you think.
Oh, yeah. And it is too. It always is.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for being here with us. Please hit that like button on your way out. If you have not, be sure to hit the subscribe button here on my channel and go over to Tory Maggoo 44 and do the same. We'd appreciate it. I hope everybody gets out today and has an amazing cult-free day.